Welcome back to another edition of the Forts Athletics Life and Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Charles Inferna. We're at Forts Athletics. We equip coaches and athletes with the tools they seek out in order to achieve their unique and specific goals. And we are recording August 31st, Wednesday morning, bright and early. Last day of August. All of our college athletes have returned back to campus, so we're ready to get started with fall festivities, if you will, on the college front. School starts next week, and depending on where you live, here in Western New York, your first day of school is going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, or in my case, we're going to start Thursday with our kiddos. And one of the big messages that not only we've been talking about at school, but also in continuing with the research piece on coach-athlete relationships that we've been talking about and discussing and learning about this month, has been about culture and environment, and about developing an environment, an atmosphere that's going to allow your athletes, or in my case, my little students, the opportunity to be successful and achieve their goals. And goals really, depending on the age group that you're working with, depending on the level, they're going to vary. But as coaches, how do we create an atmosphere of success? How do we create that opportunity, or those opportunities for our athletes? And something that I've talked about a lot in the past, and I think it's really important, and it's a critical component to that, of looking at bigger picture goals and aspirations, and kind of tracking backwards a little bit, is trying to figure out what we need to do to get where we want to go. And it really comes down to, well, one of the things that it really comes down to is small wins, and banking small victories along the way that are going to help us get to where really we want to go. So it could be a distance thrown, it could be a mark, something, a weight we want to lift in the weight room, it could be something on the lifestyle side. Basically, whatever we track and we measure is what we can see if we're making progress on or not, if that makes sense, right? So if you're in the classroom, right, we track certain, cognitive, assessments for our kids, right? There's formative and summative assessments. Formative assessments, things that, we track on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. These little assessments all the way, these little tests, if you will, to see if our students are making progress. And it's the same with our athletes as well, right? Our little formative assessments, our day-to-day tracking mechanism could be a whole multitude of things that we can look at. How much sleep did we get? Rest, recovery. We've talked about these facets of training in the past, but I can't stress enough how important they are to our own athletes' success. And all of those little facets put together help build a culture or an environment that's going to allow people to flourish under your care. And that's really what it's about, right? So we have athletes that are coming to campus, that have come to campus, are recruits. They're now officially enrolled, and they are here. And it's our job to help them get where they want to go. So the environment, besides tracking daily wins, it's really what you're also going to tolerate as far as expectations go. So if you have, much like a classroom, I'm in the classroom mode today. When I went to school, 04, 03, it was really a lot about classroom management, right? And how are we managing the behaviors of our students? And along the way, it kind of changed to expectations. So what are our expectations? So rather than looking at the negative, you will not do this. Our expectations are, this is how we act in Mr. Inferna's classroom. This is how we're going to act here. And it's similar with our track program, or really any any sports team that we are leading or we're a part of. It's what are we willing to tolerate when we're all together in a group, or what are we willing to tolerate with our own individual athletes. And that helps set either positive environment, a strong culture, or kind of send things backwards, especially if we have different expectations for different athletes that aren't understood and discussed and talked about. And I don't mind doing that with the athletes that I coach. We always have a sit down and talk about general expectations as a group together, what's expected of them as far as coming to practice. I try and stay away from effort. With goals, we have athletes that have a tendency to write down that they're going to give 100% every single day, no matter what, and it's going to be their best effort on a continual basis. And between you and I, those of you that are listening and watching, we know that's not the case. We know that it is very difficult, near to, I'd say, impossible to give 100% effort every single session. And that's not a bad thing. That's just trying to be realistic that sometimes our 100% on a Tuesday morning is 70% of our best effort. But it's 100% for that day. So giving 100% all out every single day, I think we just need to be careful and mindful of sharing and promoting something like that with our athletes, because it's tough to give that effort all the time. But if you give 100% of your best effort that day, that's different, if it makes sense. And really it comes down to accountability also. So how are we holding ourselves accountable within our culture, within our environment? Do we have team leaders? Much like in a school, we would have like an instructional leader or an instructional coach leading a grade level. Do you have team leaders leading event groups on your track team? Those team leaders know more than us most of the time in regard to what's happening on the team, not just physically in practice, but socially as well. So there's a lot of insight there. So do we empower our own athletes to be leaders in their own rights and help us as coaches take the temperature of the team, take the temperature of practice? Are we aware of what's happening? Are we aware of any underlying issues that may be going on? And I don't mind sharing this now, but there was a time at NAS, one season, where there were a couple underlying issues going on that some of our athletes, they were able to kind of keep under wraps for pretty much the whole season until our conference championships happened, and they kind of let me in on what was going on. And kudos to them for keeping their, I don't want to say issues, but their situation under wraps and not letting it, implode the whole team and the whole season. And this was just with our own throwers. Now, did we have other issues across the whole team? Yep. A lot of personality conflicts, a lot of miscommunication and misunderstanding that we probably should have done a better job as coaches of tackling and bringing to the forefront. But just for, reasons unto themselves, that didn't really happen. So creating your environment, empowering athletes on your team, having team leaders, giving them opportunities to speak and share what they think is happening or how they think things are going, really helps set the tone for your event group, really helps set the tone for your season, and really helps set and establish a culture of positive culture of cohesiveness for your team and your athletes. Well, that's it for this morning on our episode of the Forts Athletics Life and Coaching Podcast. I've been your host, Dr. Charles Infernum, and have a great day.